Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai ki te wā o Korero toi, he mea kua whakaritea e te atinga. So, welcome everybody to our next session. This is our third session of Korero toi, organised by Te Atinga, the Committee of Contemporary Māori Arts of New Zealand. And this is where we take the opportunity to showcase our amazing artists and some wonderful events and showcase the immense talent that's throughout our country. And today, we're really pleased and privileged to have Carla Ruka, Baye Riddell, nau mai kōrua, ki tēnei rangi. We'll get right into it, shall we? You two ready?
Aye.
Ka pai. So I'd just like to firstly introduce Baye. Gee, I'm lost for words. I'm so excited that you're here, Baye, today, because Baye is kind of one of these shining lights, really, that have paved the way for mahi toi Māori and uku, and from Te Whānau Rua Taupari and Ngāti Porou. Baye's worked in pottery since the early 70s, and today is regarded widely as one of the first Māori artists to work full-time in clay. He established a pottery studio at Tokomaru Bay to make domestic ware and ceramic art, and along with Manos Nathan, led a movement to revitalise clay work as a Māori art form. He's been long tutoring ceramics throughout Aotearoa and has extensively exhibited throughout Aotearoa and nationally and internationally. So with that, I'd just like to welcome you, Baye, and put forward the ata mira for you to kōrero today. Tēnā koe, te rangatira.
Tēnā koe, Regan. Koutou mai, mātaki taki mai. Ngā mea te ki a koutou. Ki o koutou maunga, o koutou awa, koutou iwi hoki, ngā mea. Ngā, tika tonu tō maharatanga ki a Manos. Rāua ko Colin hoki, rātou mā, ko haere. Nā reire, nei ngā maharatanga ki a rātou. Ngā mea hoki. Kia tātou katoa, nā reira, tēnā tātou. Kia ora, Carla, and we are still coming.
Kia ora.
Yeah, so thank you for the invitation to be on this webinar, and certainly very good to be here. Still, after all the flooding we've had here in Tokomaru Bay, and there's a lot of clay around now. All I have to do is go out and scoop it into the trailer. But yeah, this is where it works. See some of that out the window there, and very happy to be back in Tokomaru Bay, because for about almost 20 years, we'd moved down to Gisborne. We were living here in Tokomaru Bay, then moved down to Gisborne, and in the last year or so, we've just moved back to re-establish the pottery here and start cranking work out from here again. So it's great to be back, and yeah. So one of the things we've done recently with all the COVID stuff, like we were going to have an exhibition in Gisborne, and that got canned because of the COVID. It was going to be in conjunction with the Tairāwhiti Arts Festival, run by Tama Waipara and others, and that got cancelled. So we moved it here, and it's actually still up and running, and it's a Kaihanga Oku exhibition. And as you mentioned, Regan, we started Kaihanga Oku back in the 80s, which is our national Māori Clay Artists Collective, and it's been going ever since. And so that's a little cause for celebration. And it's been a great journey. So along the way, we've lost various ones, as I've already mentioned, Colleen and Manas, also Raina and Raina Marsden, way back earlier, was one of the early ones, members of Kaihangoku as well. And so, but we're still going, and it's been great to have the next generation come out and be established. Great artists like Carla, who you've got here today, and others. And I was just going to run through, show some slides of work by various ones that we've got in this particular exhibition, if that's all right. Yeah, Kate's Baye?
It's great, Baye.
Okay. So I'll attempt to do this, not that techno savvy, but here we go. Yeah, can you see that? Okay.
Aye.
So the name of the exhibition is Te Hei, and these pieces here are by Dorothy, who's still on the phone with me, trying to get them connected. So these are some lovely work by Dorothy. Now, another piece by Alex Ashworth, who lives down in Christchurch. This is by Rhonda Halliday from up Kirikiri, and this is a piece referring to the creation of Hine Ahuone. Again, another of her pieces referencing Hine Ahuone. This is a set of tiles by Corinna Douglas. One of Noel Jakeman's delightful little pieces. I love her little works. They're just so us. Yeah, and we can relate to them. Another one of Rhonda's works, again referencing Hine Ahuone. And another one of Rhonda's about the breathing of the heart by Tani into Hine Ahuone. It's one of my tour figures. This is another one of my pieces, referencing also the creation stories and the being molded from clay. This is a pot by Amorangi Hikiro. It's a wood-fired, high-fired pot. Very lively treatments. Another one of Amor's. Amor again. One of my pieces in a what I call a Punga series, which is the Anchor Stone series, inspired by those concepts. Again, another Punga. Another piece called Ufa, referencing the female element, again, referring back to those creation stories. This is a group of Wees pieces. I think they're called pinnacles. Very vigorous surface treatments there. Stevie Hokama, living in Wellington. Ngāti Pro, me te whānau apanui. This is Baye Riddell. Taku puti puti. E tahi atu o ono epu. He's actually sitting behind me. And so behind every man is a oops. E tahi atu o ono epu. One of my ones, again, another one of mine, Mania figure. Te tahi atu Mania, te tahi atu. Anō. One of Todd Douglas's figures. And some of these figures were collaborative pieces with Todd, Corinna, and Corinna and Dorothy and Rhonda Halliday did a collaborative installation work with the Auckland Botanical Gardens Sculpture in the Gardens event, and they took the premier prize for that event, for the sculptures. There were a whole heap of sculptures that were put in and submitted, and our ones took the prize. So congratulations to you. So that was just a few images I wanted to share of some of our Kahanga Oku members. I have to say, not all of them. Not all of our members are represented there, but there's a good sampling. So, great to buy.
That's wonderful, Baye. Thank you. And ngā kaihanga uku are well known for travelling as a rōpū, and that strong support that your rōpū gives each member is amazing to see and reaches far and wide. And it's great to see so many artists in your slides as well, because a lot of them may not have time on our Korero toi, but it's beautiful to see all of those active at the moment, especially in the show that's currently showing. Thank you, Baye. I just was wondering if you could just talk a bit about your own work and some of your inspirations, and maybe some key works or events that you've been a part of over the years.
Well, I work on a number of different themes, and develop them sort of consecutively, not just work away on one thing at a time. And each one gives impetus and inspiration to the next piece. So some of the themes I've had going, from 30 odd years, and keep developing them, and they side by side. The inspirations range from everything from spiritual through to political to the landscapes where I am, to the whenua, to our stories. There's any amount of inspiration to be drawn wherever you look. The trouble is trying to so I'm never short of stuff to work on. I'm never stuck for ideas to do, but sort of drawing books full of stuff that's still waiting to be done. But some of the key events, I'd say some of the key influences in my own development was my early involvement with Ngā Puna Waihanga as a group for an organisation of Māori artists back in the 60s, 70s, 80s and so forth. I first connected with Ngā Puna Waihanga in the early 80s, and I was just blown away by the diversity of the work being explored and done. new work, dynamic work in all sorts of media. And as a clay artist and developing clay within the Māori context, I received a lot of support and validation, and ran workshops within Ngā Kahanga Uku, and that's within Ngāpuna Waihanga, and that's basically what gave rise to Kaihanga Uku. We grew out of Ngāpuna Waihanga, basically. So I want to acknowledge that. So that was an early influences, with, you know, being amongst great artists. I won't name them because I'm bound to leave someone out, and but yeah, we all know them. Though, and the exhibition Toi Tu Toi Ora outlines iconic works by many of those pioneering artists, and yeah, so really privileged to be able to connect in that way. And so once we had established Kaihanga Uku, not only did we begin to network with one another nationally in Aotearoa, but also one of our aims was to connect with Indigenous artists working in clay from other parts of the world. And that led us initially to the States, to the Southwest, to Arizona, New Mexico, establishing contacts there. And with the result that in 1991, we brought a group of Native American ceramic artists out here to Aotearoa, and those connections have continued ever since, and very strong friendships. One of the more recent events was in Oregon, in Astoria, where a Native American, or he's actually originally from Hawaii but living in America, built an anagama kiln, and we'd initially had some connection and offered some support through an exhibition in which we donated work to help fund the building of this kiln. And it wasn't very much of a contribution, but later on they invited us to the opening, to the first firing of that kiln, and that was an amazing event. Carla was there, and we was there, and it was an awesome event. And they asked us to name the kiln. So we gave it the name Te Ahi Kāroa, because Richard Rowlands, the guy who built the kiln, and his community envisaged that this kiln will their vision is for it to last for hundreds of years. So it is going to be a long burning fire, a long burning flame. And so those are some of the, to me, the significant events that I've been privileged to be a part of. It's a very rich journey where you're meeting wonderful people, and to me that's the main thing, the tangata, the people that we meet and interact with and connect with along the way. Yeah, so yeah, that's briefly answers perhaps a little bit of your question, hopefully.
That's awesome, Baye. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata.
Right.
Right, tēnā koe. I just thought that I'd share just a quick screen for the kiln that you were just explaining.
Oh, cool, yeah.
There's Richard there.
Yeah, that's it. Cool.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So would you like to explain the type of kiln it is? Because it is different to others, isn't it?
It's basically the kiln designs, let's say, came from Japan, but the Japanese originally also were influenced by the Korean kiln builders and the technologies that the Koreans developed. They're basically known as Japanese anagama kilns. It's a single chambered kiln fired with wood, and it needs a lot of wood because they fire it for about 5 days to a week, and it takes about another 5 days to cool down. But the effect that they're looking for, like in this one of the top left of your screen here, it gives deposits of ash onto the pots, and the ash forms into kind of an ash glaze type thing. And in the picture in the middle of your screen there, they see the ash glaze type thing running, becoming very fluid. Here, that one here. So those are the sorts of effects typical of an anagama kiln. Very long firings, as I say, which give those effects, those ash deposits. And it's a whole community thing. That's one of Richard's underlying philosophies, is community. Yeah.
Well, that's stunning. And I think we'll talk a bit more about the community of ceramicists, because I have seen your work, and there are points where it is quite like a party. And it's about that whanaungatanga and that community and support. So, tēnā koe, Baye. Kia ora, Carla. Kia ora, Carla.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me here today.
So awesome to have you here, Carla. I'll just introduce you quickly. So Carla Ruka is Ngāpuhi Ngāti Whātua e Ngāti Porou. She is a formidable artist in her field of ceramics, an active member of Ngā Kaihanga Uku, the Māori Clay Artists Collective as well, and a committee member of the Auckland Studio Potters. Carla has been a practicing ceramic artist since 2000, since completing her studies in Māori art and design at Toi Haukura and Toi Mairangi. And Carla has also participated in many national and international projects with Ngā Kaihanga Uku, and has fostered connections within the ceramics community through her work at Driving Creek Pottery, and is the National Director of Auckland Studio Potters. Welcome, Carla, and I hear you have a touring exhibition, touring workshops coming up, so hopefully we can hear a bit about that later. But if you'd like to just talk a bit about your work, then I'd love to hear.
Kia ora again. I just like to correct, even though I love Ngāti Porou, I am not a descendant of Ngāti Porou. I'm from Ngākiri Porou, which is up north.
Oh, kia ora, Carla.
Kia ora, everyone. I just thought I'd add on to a couple of Baye's Korero, which he mentioned our exhibition for Ngā Kaihanga Uku Tihei, and also showed some images, and we actually have a online gallery, and I will I'm just going to share my screen in just a second. So if you're interested in knowing about Ngā Kaihanga Uku, or about accessing, talking to, can you see that? Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is a tentative online website for Ngā Kaihanga Uku, which is nestled within the pages of carlaruka.com. And if you come up across the top here, you have Ngā Kaihanga Uku, a brief description about NKU, opportunity to email for anything that you're interested in knowing about Ngā Kaihanga Uku, or perhaps opportunities. If you'd like to see a list of our artists, we have this here also. This is all still currently going through an updating phase, so you'll see changes to that within the next couple of months. But as discussed before by Baye, we have the opportunity to seek works or purchase works from Ngā Kaihanga Uku through the gallery. And this is the page here that you can see some of the works that Baye spoke about earlier. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that that was available, that you have that opportunity to interact with NKU if you wanted to. And I think I also had a picture, not that one, yeah, I'm sorry. Richard Rowland actually sent me this just this week. And this is the most recent picture of Ahikaroa, which is being fired in May for the Soup Bowl project. And another project they're working on. But so that is Ahikaroa there in her prime, and she's got a whole lot of wood prepared, ready to go. Yes, I'm dying to get back there and spend some time with that community. I'll just stop my share there. So that was just an update about all those things that NKU have been doing. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about the Touring Potter program. So currently I'm working alongside the Ceramic Association of New Zealand, CANZ, under the awesome support of Megan Blake, and we are supported and funded by Creative New Zealand, and we have this great idea to coil Aotearoa. And so we are traveling the regions of Aotearoa, and we are trying to plant the seeds of uku within all the communities. So I'm teaching workshops, beginners to advanced, intermediate advanced, taking workshops, artist presentations, and visiting schools and communities. And so that's what I'll be doing. Actually, starting tomorrow, I'll be up north. So hihiawa, I'm on my way. So that's kind of the things that I've been up to recently. Oh, yeah. Skip that one. Oh, so a lot of the work I like working on is I'm a fan of portraits, the female form and scale. And quite a while back, I did a project on a friend of mine, Delia, and this is actually what she looks like. And I worked on portraiture, learning different types of techniques to create different areas of, say, the face and details, and learning about texture and different glazes, and obviously casting. After I made this piece, I cast it. So that was quite exciting. These are the things that I enjoy using in my artwork. We could probably go to the next one, please, Rika. So I made this piece a while back, Hine Ukurangi series, called Unlock Your Potential. And I had just done a workshop with Caddy McLean on transferring images, and you can't see it quite in this one, but she was very inspirational when I got to work making this piece. And all the keys are from when I was managing a movie theatre, and people, like the amount of people that leave their keys in a theatre. So I made this piece around that time, and then I took her home and fired her in a place that's close to my heart in Pakiri, and fired her in one of the pits out there with my horsey friends around. Next one. Feel free if you've got any questions to navigate where you want me to talk about. This piece in particular was when I first started looking at chopping all my pieces up and then re-putting them back together. And this particular work was inspired by a work by a friend of mine. I wonder if I can take you for a walk with me. Let me just, oh no, it might be in the too hard basket. So a friend of mine, Hirirori Maynard, created this pen drawing with black, blue and red pen, and it was very linear, and I was quite inspired by that. And that's where that particular design came from. Next one, please, Regan. This is exciting to make. I was just gathering pieces of the railway up and putting it into my work. Okay. You can go forward if you want. Actually, that Driving Creek Railway is Ngā Kaihanga Uku visited there, and we had a wānanga, and that was actually quite a neat connection that we had there with the people. I'm just looking at a question. Kia ora, James. Yes, I do. Actually, that's a good question.
Do you
I've
use natural organic pigments with colour glazes?
Yes, so I've recently been really interested in the depth of colour and layers within painting, and been using that on my work. So one of the latest pieces I've created, which I actually don't have an image of, I have earth pigments from Kaiiwi Lakes and from the Maunga, and also from, I have some sand from some whenua in Ngāti Whātua. And as I'm using them in my painting. I'm using earth pigments in my work from that way. Also stones, and particularly water as well. I have water from my waterfall up home, and if something or a design is really important to me, I'll actually use some of that water as well. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Kia ora, James. I think it's really important because I recently did a commission piece for the Langham, which is the Quarters Hotel, and I did a piece with Baronia Scott, and the work that we did sits in the reception room at the Quarters. So the main entrance, there is a 3 meter high by maybe even 12 meters, 8 meters on one side and five on the other side. So we made this commission, large scale work, and part of the work was detailing important dates for the whenua and for the Quarters, and those dates entailed Waitangi, and when the land was returned back to Ngāti, some of the land was returned back to Ngāti Whātua. And so a lot of that, I went into research about the land at Orake, and because I whakapapa back to Ngāti Whātua, and when I made those pieces, I was making the ceramic sections for these panels, and I had the whenua from Ngāti Whātua, and I had some of my whenua from Ngā Kiri Parodi, and I was putting this in the work because Ngā Kiri Parodi is how I link into Ngāti Whātua. And I was making this work, and I had all of my fingerprints over these 3 meter panels, and my nieces were there and they had their handprints in there. It was actually, it was really wairua pulling. It actually had me in tears making this piece with the whenua over whenua that had been stolen, slightly returned, but at the same time the Quarters acknowledging that, so there was an interaction kind of thing happening, and using the whenua brought that element of wairua into that work. Actually also helped me get over it and learn about my whenua too. I'm probably just tangenting here, but hard to explain the whole spiritual experience of making a work that actually hit me quite significantly, and I'll always think about it. Yeah, sorry about the tangent. I keep going on that one.
No, that's so beautiful, Carla, and you can actually feel it and feel that connection. Baye, have you had any similar experiences with your mahi when making clay?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, clay, when you're working with clay, particularly, well, I dig a lot of my clay from our whenua up our whānau land. And so it's really special. And when you're using it, or when I use it, it's reconnecting with my tipuna. And so there's that feeling, that wairu about it. But also just in the general area of making pottery, pots or sculptures or whatever out of clay, there's a further sense of connection with the potters from thousands and thousands of years ago, who've also sat with a lump of clay in their hands and an idea in their mind about what they're going to do with it. So yeah, there's that sense of connection, that sense of history, of whakapapa and all of that, which is, yeah, quite moving, inspirational, and yeah. I was thinking, you know, because archaeologists are still digging up pots from thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years ago, and those pots, like I think in the advert online, you had me wearing a T-shirt. Well, there's a picture of me wearing one of Bob Yonke's T-shirts. It says "I am." Yeah, I am, as I am Korero, as I am concepts. And I was thinking that, you know, when these archaeologists dig up these ancient pots from way back, those pots are talking about that potter who, and they're saying, and that potter is saying, I was. They're still saying, or that person, I was here. I did live. I did go through all the you know, the experiences of life, the pains, the sufferings, the joys, the happinesses, the love, all of those. I was. That's what that pot is saying when it's dug up. I did exist. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Baye. We have a couple of questions. One comment from Hinga Nicholas. She says that there's one of those kilns here in Waipa, in the Waipa. So if anyone's wanting to find one of those, what are they called? Aganama kilns?
Anagama.
Anagama kilns. There's one here in Waipa. And Chris Bryant asks, does the whenua fight crack or fissure with other whenua when you combine different whenua?
Oh.
What was that again?
When you're utilizing different whenua, does it fight with each other or crack or fissure? What happens when you combine different whenua together?
Different whenua. Oh, I do that. I do that because my local clay has a very, what we call, short vitrification range. And so it can be standing up 1 minute in the kiln and then collapse because it needs more refractory material in it, or more refractory clay that stands up. And so I blend it with other clays that are have more stand-up ability, more refractoriness. So yeah, so mixing clays is a part of the process, you know. Yeah.
You can delve more into that, because then you've got the clays that if you want a better recipe, you're looking at, you've got your low fire, your earthenware range, and then you've got your mid fire and your high fire and porcelain kind of range. And if you're really wanting to make sure you're mixing the right clay together, you want to be looking at what firing range you're looking at. And that's all really defined about your finish and what you're actually looking for in your end game. But yeah, like Baye said, we mix a lot of stuff. and like material, you know, kohatu, little stones and, you know, organic matter. refractory and like what's the other kind of heat resistant kind of materials? What do you call that? To resistance against thermal shock, you know. So materials such as, you know, grog, pre-fired clay that can offer everything that you put in your clay is like a recipe, and it's gonna, you know, it's gonna help your clay with a certain purpose. And so yeah, so you're building up a cake of what you want it to be, really. Like Baye needs more stand-uppers. and yeah, and clay's got, the clay recipes are always changing. Yeah.
So great to know
it
that you
depends
can.
on, as Carla said, but the end idea is, so if you're building big things, you want a pretty grunty clay.
Yeah.
And so you mix stuff like grog, which is pre-fired clay, and ground up into the mix. If you want to make very delicate, fine stuff that you want to burnish and stuff like that, you use a very smooth grained clay. Yeah.
It's so great to know that you can actually utilize uku from your surroundings, from your actual whenua, and that brings in so much stronger a narrative and connection with your mahi. And you know, knowing a little bit about the process of clay, I think that uku artists in particular are really in tune with process and the risk of death or breaking. How do you kind of work through, like if you've worked on a piece that's really refined and then through the process that breaks or cracks, what kind of things happen for you when that happens?
Yeah, it depends on the nature of the breakage or what. You can repair things during the making process, and even post-firing afterwards. Yeah. Yeah, so there are things that you can do, but as you say, there's a high level of risk all along the way. So you have to be careful, like things like how you're drying the piece to start with, that it doesn't get uneven drying and drafts coming on it, that it dries slowly. Don't stick it straight out in the sun if it's a large piece, all that sort of stuff. So it's every bit along the way. There's a million, well, let's say 1,000 things that can go wrong all along the road. And so when you get a perfect piece out of the firing, that's a real blessing. Yeah.
And I also think that that's almost two questions in a way, because I can't remember who taught me. Was it you, Baye? Like, we threw our stuff up in the air before we fired it, and if you dropped it, tough cookies. Was it you? I don't
No, was that throwing it?
It's just like whoop. But you were real careful. But so, like, I feel almost like that's two questions. Like, the first question is the cracking, and the other question is mentally connecting to your work, because actually when you're, and this is probably more personalized, when I'm working with my ceramics, when I'm working with hine ukurangi in my clay, actually the work that I'm doing with hine ukurangi is a process of spiritual happening. So even if the work breaks, I still went through that process. And the other question with the other part of that being with the cracks is, don't let it crack. You do everything you can to make sure you don't. You're you know, checking out your recipes, and then you, like Baye says, the way you build, the way you let it dry, the way you fire, and the way you do everything in handling. So yeah, once you start, once you do break something, you are way more diligent with the processes that you use, because firstly, if you're buying clay, it's expensive, and if you don't have your own kiln or you're not firing naturally, that's expensive, and then you've got to fire it how many times, and then you've got to carry that thing. You got to like ship it somewhere. You don't want to muck up. So you actually, I think that's another part of that question, is you actually you will be more diligent when you break something, and it won't happen again, maybe.
It's great to hear, Carla, and often that is the way, isn't it, to have an accident or do something that's wrong, then it's the best way to learn and be more careful. And I guess with experience and learning all those tricks of the trade and understanding your medium so well, then you lower the risk. Awesome, thank you. So Chris Bryant sent in another question, just asking, with the revitalisation of rural Māori, are you looking at developing aspects that support Te Ao Māori practices, such as the ipu whenua, how type of Māori incorporated and supported through your mahi?
Yeah. That's something that has happened as people have responded to us making pots. They've asked for certain pots. Like just last week, I was asked to make, or asked, I was at a ceremony where I'd made an ipu puehu for whānau in Gisborne, or an ash pot for them, and made sometime earlier, I've made another ash pot for them for one of their whanaunga. And so there is an evolving and increasing adoption into our ritual practices. You mentioned ipu whenua, which is something that Manos and Haraina and them developed up north, and ipu pito for bearing the pito, and the ipu whenua for the whenua. And typically they were and are still, still making them for people. I made another a few weeks ago for someone. But typically they're left unfired, the ipu whenua, and that's the theory. The thought behind that is that it'll break down and return into te papa. But as so those are some of the things that have evolved, and I think it's still an evolving kaupapa. It's still an evolving kaupapa because our contexts are changing. Like when my grandmother lived up on our whānau land at Te Puea, when she had a child, it was my uncle's job just to go outside and to this particular spot and bury the thing, bury the whenua there, it was right there on the land. But nowadays, our ones, most of our people live in urban areas. They don't have immediate access to go outside just right there and then after giving birth to women our way there to bury the whenua. And so I think it's an ongoing conversation, because the question arises, okay, so in the city, you have you give birth, what are you going to do with the whenua? You're going to stick it in the deep freeze with the kai? No. No. So, until you can go back to your wākainga and bury it. So what do we do? And as I say, this is an ongoing conversation. Well, a conversation that probably needs to be aired and had. In my own family, recently we had a daughter who had a moko for us, and so until the time when she can make to go back to our wākainga, we put it in a plant pot outside and put a kōwhai tree on top. And so when we go back to our whenua, we'll put that pot in the ground and break it, and that will be our way of dealing with that. And it's possibly, you could put it in also in a wooden plant box or something that will break down in the soil. So as I said, it is a conversation that does need to be continued and had and talked about. And it's a kaupapa or tikanga that's still evolving. Yeah, that's some thoughts anyway on that. What
That's
about,
beautiful,
yeah,
Carla.
I think actually Baye kind of covered all of that. Well, there was also, did we lose we? Lost we?
So
Uh,
we've
the-
gone and we'll get him back on board in another session.
Okay. So there was also the petal pots. Did you mention the petal pots?
yeah,
The petal pots, which we did a lot of. But yeah, I think you kind of covered that area.
yeah.
I think that's actually a really good conversation to have in the future when we meet up next. Yeah. Oh, there was
And
also
there are other
the
areas in which we as clay artists have been asked to make you know, pieces like headstones, like puatu, headstones and
water
stuff like that.
vessels.
Yeah,
Ipu wai.
ipu no, whakanoa, ipu wai, yeah. So it's evolving and still evolving and being adopted, and it's just a natural. It's sort of happening naturally. We're not trying to force anything. Just as people have asked for things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything to add, Carla?
No, not. I think that was, yeah, I think Baye did all right with that one.
Awesome. So we haven't got any more questions at the moment, but what are your thoughts for the future in terms of improving your practice?
Me or
Go for it, Carla. More of the future than I have.
Well, well, I guess my current journey is really planting some seeds and getting people interested in clay uku. I'm hoping to spread some understanding around Māori ceramics or Indigenous ceramics, and kind of making that bridge for people to feel that they can, interact with ngā kaihanga uku. So my journey this year and it looks like probably the beginning of next year is planting those seeds with this touring potter program. Oh, what happened?
Where are you traveling to, Carla?
So the first area I'm in is Northland, so Hihiaua in Whangarei, Te Ako in Kaikohe, and Rayburn House, Firebird in Whangarei. Just looking at my calendar, so that's the first region, 3 weeks. And then the following 3 weeks, Nelson, then Great Barrier Island, Taranaki, Gisborne. Not necessarily in that order. That's kind of all I can think of that I can remember, actually. Sorry to everybody if I've forgotten the region. It's been quite difficult because everything had to be moved because of COVID. So we've just been planning and replanning and planning. So being very adaptable. Yeah. So if you're in any of those areas and you'd like me to come out and plant some seeds in your kura or your anywhere or your local community, you want to learn about some uku, and perhaps I can teach you something, you're welcome to contact Megan Blake. Anyone can contact. She's pretty amazing. She doesn't turn many people away. And you can contact her through touringpotter@ceramicsnewzealand.org. Or if you forget that, the Ceramics Association of New Zealand have it on their website.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. And Baye?
The future, In the future, I'll be working on the past.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm working on a book at the moment, chronicling the history of the development of Kaianga Uku. So as I say, I'll be working on the past.
Yeah.
Because I feel, you know, with Manos and Colleen passing and that, I think it's important to get the history down. And so that's my project that's consuming me at the moment, and they're looking to be released about this time next year, hopefully. And yeah, and then I'll be able to. Well, pretty soon I should be able to get back into doing some clay stuff instead of sitting in front of a computer all day.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's wonderful, Baye. Great things to be looking forward to, and everybody to look out for is Baye's new book and Carla's touring workshops where you can actually work one-on-one next to her. Pretty privileged place to be. And with that, so we've come to our hour, and I'd just like to send a big mahi to you both. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and sharing your experience. And I'm sure, well, I know personally I've learned a lot in this hour, and I just want to send a big thank you to Ngā Korero.
Good, Regan. Thank you.
Kia ora, Regan. Kia ora. And kia ora, everyone.
Ka kite koutou.
Ka kite, and we'll see
Ka kite.
everyone next week. Ka kite.